First of all, let me begin by saying I love Despicable Me. I can quote the entire first movie off by heart. I've annoyed many a friend that way. I stayed in a Minion-themed hotel when we went to Universal Studios Japan. Believe me when I tell you that I wanted this movie to be good. Unfortunately, this is a mess of a movie, full of pointless subplots, jokes as funny as cremation, and an overall sense that it's trying to be everything the first movie wasn't. Prepare yourself if you plan on seeing this movie, because after you do, Despicable Me 3 won't look half bad.
I'm joking, although it is true.
Hello everyone, I'm Jess. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The basic setup of the movie is that Gru is being hunted down by a villain who's mad at him for embarrassing him at their high school reunion, except that later in the movie he says he's mad at him for singing Karma Chameleon at a school talent show. And the entire Gru family must be relocated to a beautiful new neighborhood. What kind of crazy hijinks do they get up to in their new home, you might ask? Not many. What kind of conflicts arise between the family and their new neighbors? One guy doesn't like them very much. However, this new locale does give rise to some truly wacky subplots. For example, Margot has to start afresh in a new school. She gets glitter bombed off screen and we never come back to that storyline. Edith and Agnes, I guess, don't have to go to school? So they start attending a karate class with a seriously no-nonsense sensei. Edith stomps on his foot and we never come back to that storyline. Lucy has to start hairdressing in an upscale salon in town, despite having no experience as a hairdresser. She immediately burns a woman's scalp and beats her up for it, and you guessed it, that's that storyline done. Now you may be wondering, sure these subplots are short, but it doesn't really matter so long as the characters learn valuable messages from them. And I agree with that. But nobody learns a single thing in these subplots. They're really just a collection of things that happen because why not? Then we have the humor of the movie, or lack thereof. Every joke in this movie is either physical comedy, an awkward conversation that goes about 3 times as long as it should, or a pop culture reference. The physical comedy is okay. Certainly not what it used to be, especially with the inclusion of the Mega Minions. The real problems lie with the other two types. Awkward conversation is one of the trickiest types of dialogue to write. In order for it to land, there needs to be subtle conflict between characters and a clear goal that each character is trying to reach. Without this, it's just a couple of characters taking turns to say something stupid. That's what we get in this movie, because there is never any subtle conflict going on between characters, and aside from the villain, nobody has a clear goal. And so what's meant to be just a funny conversation between two characters becomes an agonizing 30 seconds for the viewers. And there are a lot of these 30 seconds in the movie. As annoying as this was, what makes the humor in this movie truly unbearable is the over-reliance of pop culture references. We've got overplayed K-pop, a butter poster on someone's wall, a BTS phone case, flossing, most of which were shoved into the movie in the most obnoxious and jarring ways. It's just a lazy substitute for good humor that cheapens the experience even more. The moment I gave up on trying to like this movie is a moment in which a bratty girl makes fun of Gru, and Gru calls her out on not respecting her elders. The girl, who turns out to be a major character by the way, responds by saying, "I don't respect boomers, I just mock them."
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Now, you're probably wondering when I'm gonna start talking about the actual plot of the movie. And I hate to break it to you, but I kind of already have. That short little summary at the beginning of my review and the details of the subplots, that's pretty much all you need to know. There's a part I haven't mentioned about Gru trying to steal a honey badger and a few Mega Minions montages, and with that, you pretty much know everything except the finale. But what about subtext? What about theme? What's this movie really about? Nothing. There is no subtext, there is no theme. You might be thinking, oh, since the characters are being relocated, maybe they could deal with some theme about dealing with change or adapting to new environments. No, they don't do that. Characters make a few remarks about not wanting to move and that's all that happens. And when push comes to shove, that's my biggest gripe with Despicable Me 4.
It's about nothing.
Nobody learns anything throughout this entire movie. The one exception would be Gru Jr., who learns to love his dad. But aside from that, every character stays exactly the same from the start to the end. Compare that with the first Despicable Me. Gru learned to love something other than himself after spending years trying to prove his worth as a villain. Margot learned to trust Gru after living a life of disappointment. Even the minions learned the rewards of doing good instead of just causing mischief. The arc in this movie is barely a speed bump. Not to mention that Gru in this movie is the most passive hero in entertainment history. He's the kind of hero that makes you think, well, at least Bella Swan had an objective. Gru wants nothing throughout this entire story, if you can even call it that. At the very least, he would like his son to not hate him, and his cover not to be blown, the latter of which requires him to do nothing. He is chasing after nothing. Nothing that happens in the entire movie is because of something the protagonist wants. So what we have here is a Despicable Me movie with no conflict, no theme, no real protagonist, no story, and no humour. I would have forgiven it for not being a masterpiece. It is, after all, a film made for kids. But I can hardly even call it a movie. It exists solely because Despicable Me exists, and it insults every other movie in the franchise. If there's one thing I can thank it for, it's that I now have a much deeper reverence for the original. But by gum, how I wish I could have said this was a good movie. Now, to round everything off, I'd like to mention the parts of this movie I did appreciate. The first is a little bucket hat that Gru Jr. wears throughout the film. That hat is the most adorable piece of clothing I've ever seen in a movie. They should get rid of all the Mega Minions merchandise they've got lined up and just sell that hat. I would pay good money for that hat. The second thing is the animation. The entire movie looks gorgeous. Say what you will about Illumination, but their animation is unmatched. I was mesmerized by the character's hair the entire time. Lastly, the ending scene. I'm a simple person. I saw Vector dancing with El Macho and Fred the neighbor standing by the fence, and I was ecstatic. That scene was my endgame, and despite almost every other aspect of the movie being terrible, I reached the credits smiling. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Do you completely disagree with me on Despicable Me 4? If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. That sounds like a threat, I assure you it wasn't. If there's an upcoming movie you'd like me to review, please let me know. And with that, I will see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.